Hi guys, we're going to start talking about linear inequalities in this section. You'll notice I've got a regular organizer even though I'm talking about graphing. Here's the deal. Today I want to spend some time and talk about the steps, and tomorrow we'll really delve in to being able to actually graph it and follow the steps. So I'm going to go through just like I did before and kind of fill out this organizer as we go. So our first step when we go to do these graphing inequalities that we're going to be focused on is that we need to make sure all the equations that we're dealing with are written in slope-intercept form. If they're not written in slope-intercept form, then we need to change it so they are. So when I talk about slope-intercept form, that looks like this. This value right there is going to be my slope, my m. Whatever this value is here for b is going to be my y-intercept. So when it's in slope-intercept form, I need to be able to identify the slope and the intercept. That's why I write it in that way. Okay, now I'm going to move on to keep talking about our steps, but I'm going to move to step 2 here. So step 2, we need to determine the kind of line that we have. So there's really two kinds of lines that we're going to see. We're going to see a possibility of having a dash line or having what we'd call a filled in or a solid line. Now dash looks exactly the way that you would think. Solid line looks like that. So if I have a dash line, it's because the inequality either has to be less than or greater than. If I have a dash line. If it is solid, it's going to be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So it is based on whether that equal to is with it. That's what determines if it's solid. No equal to with it, it's going to be dashed. Okay, let's go to step 3. For step 3, we need to determine what shading is going to happen. Now I have two kinds of shading. Times when I'm going to shade above the line, times when I'm going to shade below the line. So if it's above the line that I'm going to shade, that's because it has to be greater than or equal to. If I'm going to shade below, it's going to be less than or equal to. Okay, let's go to the next one. So step 4. So step 4, we're going to graph whatever line they gave us. And we are either going to use the dash line that we think it is or the solid or filled in line that we think it is. So when you graph the line, it's going to be based on what kind of line you think this is. Okay. For step 5, we're going to do our shading. So we're going to shade above or below. Based on the inequality we have. There is one piece that I want you to be careful of. So when you shade, don't shade on the line. Because if you shade on the line, I'm not going to be able to tell whether you mean it to be dashed or whether you mean it to be filled in. So we do have to be careful with that. And so when you're going to do it, don't shade on the line. Get as close to it as you can without touching it. Okay, so let me put this back the way it was. Oops, let's talk about how we can practice some of this information that we have to make sure we have the big ideas taken care of. So first of all, if I'm going to practice the steps for the info that I'm given, if it's a dash line, remember it would have to be either less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So that means this or this would be a dash line. Now I think what I'm going to do is still use the y and the 2x plus 5, but I'm going to worry about the inequalities as I move around this. So if it's a filled in or solid line, that means it would have to be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So if I had this or this, I would have a solid or filled in line. Okay, now let's talk about shading. If I shade below, it's got to be less than or equal to. So this would shade below, and so would that. Okay, last one. To shade above, it would have to have greater than or equal to. So this is an example of one that would be shaded above, and this one. Okay, next video, we're actually going to graph the inequalities using these steps.